Juno and her rivals. In this story, the hero was a Roman goddess named Juno. Even though she had not done anything heroic, it was told from her perspective. She didn't necessarily save the day, but she went on an adventure. She left her ordinary world and went on a journey to Earth.
The Shadow Jupiter. The shadow or villain in the story was Jupiter. He was the husband of Juno and he was cheating on his wife with Io the heifer. After Io was captured, he was bothered that she was constantly suffering, so he sent Mercury to slay Argus, the 100-eyed monster, and rescue Io. The herald Io. In this story, the hero that made Juno go on her adventure was Io. Io was a heifer and she was having an affair with Jupiter, the husband of Juno. Juno became really suspicious and delivered Io off to Argus to be watched closely.
In the story, Argus was the loyal retainer. He was the 100-eyed monster that assisted the hero Juno. He worked for Juno, imprisoned and suffered Io. Callisto was also a mistress of Jupiter and was also considered as the rival of Juno in the story.
Juno one day perceived it suddenly grow dark and immediately suspected that her husband had raised a cloud to hide some of his doings that would not bear the light. She brushed away the cloud and saw her husband on the bank of a glassy river with a beautiful heifer standing near him. Juno suspected the heifer's form, concealed with some fair nymph of mortal mold, as was indeed the case, for it was Io, the daughter of the river god Anycus, whom Jupiter had been flirting with, and when he became aware of the approach of his wife, had changed into that form. June joined her husband, and noticing the heifer praised its beauty, and asked whose it was, and of what herd. Jupiter, to stop questions, replied that it was just a fresh creation from the earth. So Juno asked to have it as a gift. The goddess Juno had not yet relieved of her suspicion, so she delivered the heifer to Argus to be strictly watched. Argus had 100 eyes in his head and never went to sleep with more than 2 at a time, so he kept watch Io constantly. He suffered Io to feed through the day and night, tied her up with a vile rope round her neck. Jupiter was troubled at beholding the suffering of his mistress, and calling Mercury, told him to go and dispatch Argus. Mercury was the son of Jupiter. He presented himself as a shepherd during his flock, as he strolled and blew upon his pipes. These were what are called the syrinx and pandions. Argus was glad for the company and listened happily to the soft music. After some time, Mercury told his story, a very long and monotonous tale that went on and on. Before Mercury had finished his story, he saw Argus all asleep, as his head nodded forward on his breast. To honor Argus as a loyal servant, Juno put his eyes as ornament on the tail of her peacock. And for the last, Juno's heart softened. He said to Jupiter, "Promise me that you will never look at Io again." Jupiter agreed. With that, he changed Io into a beautiful young girl. So after Io, Jupiter once again had another mistress. Callisto also was caught with Jupiter by Juno. This time she decided to make her a bear. One day her son was hunting and found her. And the second before he was about to kill her, Juno stopped him and took them both. She questioned Thetis and Oceanus on what to do. She came to a decision. Instead of turning her back like what she did to Io, she made them into stars, known as the Great and the Little Bear. And that is the story about Juno and her rivals.